In this video, I want to discuss some of the structures of the tooth. Now, depending on which class you're in, of course, you're going to learn more about some teeth than others. But this tooth is just a generic tooth model, so I'm only going to discuss what we can see on the model. Now, on the model, you can see the part of the tooth that is external to the gums or the gingiva. That portion of the tooth is known as the crown of the tooth. The portion of the tooth that runs through the gums anatomically are known as the gingiva. That portion of the tooth is known as the neck. So we have the crown, the neck, and then the portion of the tooth that is embedded in the gum fossus of the tooth socket is known as the root of the tooth. So we have a crown, we have a neck, and we have a root. Now the crown is covered with the hardest substance in the human body, which is enamel. Enamel, very hard substance covering our teeth. Enamel is an off-white color. Mostly white, but not quite white. The bulk of the tooth, however, is not made of enamel. The bulk of the tooth is made of a material called dentin. Dentin. And if you look carefully at the tooth, you can kind of see some rays laid out here. Those are known as dental tubules. Those are actually just the cellular processes of the cells that laid down the material known as dentin. Now inside the tooth is hollow. And it is hollowed out in an area known as the pulp cavity. And the pulp cavity is filled with blood vessels and nerves. Any of you that have ever had to have a filling are quite well aware that there are nerves inside the tooth. Those nerves and blood vessels got into the tooth and left the tooth via a canal that runs through the root known as the root canal. The root canal is an anatomical structure. A root canal is a dental procedure. So here we're talking about the structure known as the root canal, and at the very tip of the root of the tooth there is a small foramen known as the apical foramen. That is where the nerves and the arteries can come into the tooth and the veins can leave the tooth. So the root canal. Now surrounding the root of the tooth we have a very thin layer of tissue known as cementum. On this model, this light blue color is the cementum. The cementum. Teeth are modified bones. Based on the angle of this tooth, we will assume that this is the mandible. Bones are held to bones with ligaments. Teeth are no exception. If you look carefully on this model, you see these little white lines going from the cementum and the root of the tooth across to the mandible. Those little white lines are known as periodontal ligaments. Periodontal ligaments. They help hold the tooth in place within that gum fossus known as the tooth socket. So to recap, we have the crown, which is made of dentin capped with enamel. We have the neck of the tooth where it runs through the gingiva or the gums. Inside we have a pulp cavity where we will find blood vessels and nerves. And leading through the root of the tooth, we will find the root canal, open at the end of the root via an apical foramen. The root of the tooth is covered with a membrane known as cementum, and spanning between the tooth and the bone, either the mandible or the maxilla, will be small ligaments known as periodontal ligaments.